Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody to where are we? January's People Policy and Development Committee. Hope everybody had a nice Christmas and a happy New Year. The first item on the agenda.
Miles away now, Ken.
No, it does, yeah. Well, as you say that, Jan, it feels like yesterday to me, but there we are. Okay, first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
I haven't got any apologies, Chair.
Okay, that's nice. That's a new one on us. Good to see you. New Year's resolutions all around, is it? Okay, I'm only joking. Okay, second item is disclosures of personal or prejudicial interests. None, I can't see it be indicated. Okay, and then minutes of the last meeting, which was the December meeting, 2021. So anybody be happy with those? Somebody happy to move them?
Yeah, I'll move them, Chair.
Thanks, Matthew, and Steve's indicating as well. So Steve, if you don't mind seconding, that would be great. Okay, and then we're on to the first item on the agenda, which is first proper item on the agenda really, which is in the work plan, which is employability programs update. So is Elliot with us?
I think Nia Pugh is with us today.
Oh, hi Nia, sorry about that.
Hi, that's okay. I just missed the apologies section, but yeah, Elliot isn't able to make it today.
Okay.
So I'm here to cover the employability report. I'm Nia Pugh and I'm working in the economic development and external funding team, and I manage some of the employability projects that are sitting within the council in place.
Brilliant.
Just wanted to check whether you wanted me to run through the report or take questions on the report, or
yeah, would you mind running through the report just briefly?
Yeah, of course. I know that Elliot did a presentation, I think, in the last PDC on employability programs, or the last one that he was in, and has since drafted an update in the report. There have been some positive developments, which I'll come to in a second, since Elliot gave that presentation, which are covered, I believe, in section 5 of the report. So the first two sections really of the paper provides an overview of the employability projects and the training programs that we delivering within the council. It also provides a bit of a summary of some of the achievements that we've seen to date, and looks at the opportunities and highlights some of the challenges that we need to consider really when we're developing future projects, especially in light of post-EU funding really. I won't read through the whole background. Just key highlights really, so just have a look through.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just that we've got a number of employability programs within the council. Each one targets different cohorts of individuals in line with funding priorities. 4 of these are ESF funded, so European Social Fund funded, and they include Workways programme, the Communities for Work, Short-Term Unemployed project, all of which are due to end in December 2022. And the CAMNESA project also, which supported 16 to 24-year-olds, which ended in July of last year. So we are seeing a gap in provision at the moment for the 16 to 24-year-olds with the end of CAMNESA project. We've also got the Communities for Work Plus project, which is funded by Welsh Government, and the Kickstart Scheme, which is funded by the UK Government through the Department of Work and Pensions, which also will come to an end in March of this year. So broadly speaking, whilst each project targets different cohorts, the support is very similar across the projects in that each project has an element of community outreach, engagement. Every project will have the tailored mentoring support, action planning, training opportunities, volunteering, job search and so forth, and some are also able to offer paid work placements, not all unfortunately, but we do have some that can. Next section goes through some of the unemployment statistics. Seen a slight change in December. We've gone from, so in section 4.4, the claimant count was at 4.6 in Swansea. It's gone to 4.1. So it has been falling, or going at least in the right direction, but not quite to the pre-pandemic figures really. through discussions with the DWP, and it mentions here also, we haven't really seen a massive impact from furlough ending back in September. And we did expect all the employability projects to become very busy for lots of people to look for support in September, but that hasn't really happened. And what we have seen is there's a lot of opportunities, job opportunities out there, and we've got a shortage of people to fill those vacancies at the moment. So it is a very different landscape to what we're used to be honest. The projects have continued to support people through the pandemic remotely, and as you can see from Elliot's report there, since the pandemic we've supported, well, it's gone up a little bit now, but 1,263 people with 500, which is now actually 600 of those have been held back to employment, and by that that's employment of 16 hours plus, so, and hopefully sustainable employment. If we go to the next section, so really the two major main developments for us since the last PDC that we attended is that whilst we're delivering the current provision across all the projects really within the council, we've really seen some gaps in the provision. So as a result, when the UK government announced the call for Community Renewal Fund, we put a pilot employability project together, put the proposal forward for a project called Pathways to Work. The project was successful and we'll start delivering this month. We are piloting a multi-agency approach on this project, something we haven't really done before. So we're working with partners such as Gower College, departments, education department, social services, and teams such as Workways in Place, as well as the YMCA and Third Sector, SCVS, and Swansea University and Barnardo's. So we've all got the same aims, but delivering different elements of the project. We tried to do away with the eligibility constraints that we see on current projects, such as age, benefit status, so that we can support anybody over 16, really, and open up opportunities to groups who are not currently supported. So whilst broadening the offer, we're also targeting key vulnerable groups such as youth offenders, looked after children, asylum seekers, and a few other groups as well. So the aim of the project is also to create clear pathways into specific sectors, into specific careers, by setting up job sector placements. But prior to the placements, actually, we'll have sort of job fairs, training days. Swansea University are doing quite a lot around digital tech and digital skills. Gower College have got an element of a skills advisory brokerage, but basically what we're trying to do is show the pathways into these opportunities that are out there at the moment, really. We're also creating 30 paid work placements for 2 months on that project. This is a pilot project though, so it's only got 5 months left to run, and the hope is then if we can show how that's worked and how the partners have worked well together, that we can put something forward for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund then. Also, and lastly really, the Kickstart Scheme that launched as a response to the pandemic back in December 2020, with the aim of creating fully funded jobs for 16 to 24-year-olds who are on universal credit. As a council and as a gateway, as an employer and as a gateway, we set up over 260 6-month fully paid placements with 61 employers. As an employer, the council have established well over 60 placements now, actually, across a number of departments, including business, building services, parks, waste management, social services, housing and estates. So far, over 80 young people have completed or are about to complete their placements. I think 32 have completed, and 27 of those have gone into work or into education. So it has been really successful. And on the back of that, because that's due to end in March now, we will see a gap really in the support that we can offer in terms of the paid placement opportunities. So a proposal was submitted to the Council's Economic Recovery Fund in December 22 to set up a new placement and training project. So we're aiming to create 50 fully paid work opportunities within council departments to start with, for those who are at risk of long-term unemployment. The aim really is to also remove some of the eligibility constraints that we see on current programmes like Kickstart, such as age. So we want to broaden the offer, really broaden the opportunities to the over 25s, to those who are not on universal credit, and also offer that pre-placement and training support, which isn't really a feature of the current Kickstart scheme and we feel is a missing feature. One key feature of the new project will be that there'll be wraparound mentoring and employer support for both departments and for the participants, and we've seen this as a real key to the success of placements. So that's me. If anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Nia. I mean, I'm hearing myself seeking feedback here. Can you put yourselves on mute, please, if you're not speaking? There we are. Thank you. So I just wanted to say to thank you, but also briefly, I should have said in the disclosure personal prejudicial interests, as with last month, I work for Bananas as well in the day job. So I know you mentioned Bananas there. So just Alison, for the record, can you send me a form, please? And obviously there is a kind of a conflict, a slight conflict, a personal conflict of interest. Sorry, there, just to acknowledge that. Anybody? I know Yvonne's indicated, so I'll bring you in first, Yvonne. Yvonne.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Alice, Nia, sorry, thanks for that. But you mentioned, and I know before I start that it's a pilot, but the pathways to work, I think it was, you mentioned the university SCVS, and I was wondering, there doesn't seem when these partnerships are put together that grassroots organizations aren't taken into account. So you still have that cohort of people who might want to work, but don't know what's happening or don't know how to, can't get to the university. If you take City of Sanctuary, for example, who have quite a lot of families and the Syrians and what have you, but I just feel that sometimes the smaller, the real grassroots are excluded from, and I just wondered if you were able to get funding for a longer term, is there an opportunity to consider other smaller organizations that, because I often feel as well that by the time it's top sliced to pay those organizations, there really isn't a lot left for the people who need it. Sorry.
No, that's a fair point, really, and yes, absolutely. With the future funds, I mean, we had a call of probably 3 weeks to put this together. We did meet a lot of partners who are not on the project at the moment, purely because we couldn't get things in time and couldn't get around a lot of people. But certainly for the next, for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we'd be looking to reach out to more people, really, and we'll have more time, really. To sort of advertise the fact that we're putting something out. I mean, there is a Swansea employability network, and that's running actually as we're on this call, but that's open to any organisation who's supporting anyone with employment. And if there's someone missing from that, we try to make sure that they are a member of that, and we meet quarterly.
I am a member, but I didn't have an invitation to today's, for example. So.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So, but and sorry, I'll just say again, I realized it was a pilot, so I don't expect you to have everyone in the pilot, but I was just sort of flagging up for the future.
Absolutely.
If you had funding to go forward. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Kerry.
Apologies. John Curtis.
Yeah, just can see here in the report that you work with the City Deal projects. I'm on a City Deal scrutiny, and they were on yesterday about the skills and talent and making sure that the youngsters are skilled up to the jobs that are available and the needs that are out there. So it's good to see that is happening. Because, you know, the jobs of the future they are, and some of the jobs that's not around now where the skills are not there for them to do it, such as green energy and all this sort of thing. So it's great to see that you're training the youngsters up for the right sort of jobs that are out there, because there's no good learning skills if they're not needed in the jobs that they try for, is what I'm saying. So great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jan. I can't see anybody else indicating at the minute. I mean, there's a couple of things that occurred to me, Nia. One of them was about the Shared Prosperity Fund. I know you mentioned that it doesn't come online until the end of 2022. Is that what you said?
We don't really know for sure.
Right.
I know they were looking at March, April, but really we haven't sort of had the indication yet. But that's what we understand it to be around then. So whilst this is still running, really. Yeah,
and that's UK government.
It
isn't
is,
it?
yeah.
It is UK government. Yeah. Okay. Have we got any kind of idea about what, you know, even if we don't have no timeline, what it might look like? Because the thing that always strikes me when we have presentations on this area is just how much there is and how complex it is, and therefore how complex it is to stay on top of it all strategically and plan. And this, you know, it seems to me that we've got quite you know, at the end of this year, when a lot of the ESF projects funding comes to an end, it puts us in a very difficult position, doesn't it, to be able to plan going forward. If we have no idea when that fund is going to kick in, and two, what it even looks like, or kind of ballpark figures for how much it's going to be, and how that compares to what we've had access to whilst we've been in Europe. So, I mean, that's a big question, so I don't expect you have all the answers to that.
No, not yet. I mean, we have an idea of how we think it might be set up purely from the Community Renewal Fund, but things could change, so we're not really sure. But no, we've had very little on it so far, to be honest.
Okay, I mean, I think that's really, you know, for us as councillors to be aware of that, I think is really, really important, because obviously, you know, whether we're on scrutiny panels, as Jan just mentioned now, you know, for you guys as officers, understanding the pressures that you're under, because there's, for whatever reason, I don't want to get into Brexit or anything else. That's the last thing I want to blink into. But you know, we are where we are. But I think it's really important that we know that as councillors, and that I'm sure that senior officers and the cabinet are aware of this. But it's something that we need to be really pushing for, don't we, in terms of pushing up to central government about this, because, you know, we're already, as we all mentioned at the start, we're already at the end of January in 2022, and yet we don't seem to have any understanding of what's going to happen, which is frankly appalling, isn't it? Really, I mean, for the people of Swansea who need our services, who are also, you know, part of the great public that vote in general elections for the UK. This is pretty appalling, really, isn't it? So, without getting too political, I think we need to communicate this, just double check with people like Rob Stewart and other people, that this is being really pushed with UK government via Cardiff as well. So, okay, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think one of the other things that were occurring to me, that have always occurred to me with this, is with the loss of Camnessa. I know that with Camnessa, that there was support, and you mentioned it a little bit. It's with some of the projects. I know Camnessa was one. I think you can contradict me if I'm wrong, but there was support for that particular cohort of young people to get them work ready. It wasn't just about providing opportunities and work placements, because then, as all the councillors here, anybody who's been here for a couple of years anyway, will recognise the challenges that there always are with getting sort of young people without education and training into work placements when they just simply aren't ready to be able to do that, and then it ends up in a big disappointment for everybody. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of the thing that always, given my background professionally, that's the thing I always concentrate on, is the more vulnerable, not just children, young people, but adults as well, and ensuring that we haven't got any major gaps around that as a result of losing Camness. And I appreciate you mentioned a number of different projects within that, but again, time scale wise, those are quite short term, aren't they, by the sounds of it?
Very, very short term, actually. The team who are working on Camness are within this project also, so they will be concentrating on the pre-engagement support, as with the YMCA and Bernardo. So, you know, some may progress on to the placements at the end, some may not. But I think 5 months to run is not very long, really.
Okay, that's great. All right, thanks, Nia. You just reinforcing what you already know here, aren't I? Okay, Leslie, are you able to speak, Leslie, or have you put something in the? You put something in the thing, have you? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Leslie, for those who just joined us, Leslie isn't able to speak because the computer's playing up. So she's just saying here, following on from what Jan said, always concerned that we give as much attention to learning and developing skills rather than getting people to get to a qualification.
I absolutely agree, yes.
Okay, there we are, great. Thanks, Les. Okay, anybody else want to ask Nia anything at this point? I can't, hang on, let me go back. Indicated. Okay, no, nobody's indicated. So it just remains me to say, Nia, thanks very much for coming on. And if you can take our thanks back to Elliot as well for the work that's been done. I think in terms of bringing it, I know the end of the report talks about coming back towards the end of 2022 when we know a little bit more. If it's okay, I just want to open it up to the other committee members that I personally think that's probably that's going to be too late because there's going to be planning between now and then, and hopefully there'll be some information from central government around what's happening with that what was it called, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, because obviously that's going to be really crucial, isn't it, for us as a local authority and for this particular area of work. So I think maybe if we can schedule, Alison, for obviously not next month, maybe not March, maybe April, the first week into the we don't have
an April meeting, no,
okay.
So March will be our last meeting.
Can we put schedule for March? If there's nothing to update, then we can just do a quick verbal update on that. If you take that back to Elliot. But then we might be in a position where there is something to update on the council. I just think it's such an important area of work. I mean, it really is. And it would be really good for the committee to stay involved and kind of liaising with you guys from a political perspective. I just think it's really important, if that's okay.
Of course.
Anybody disagree with that? I mean, I'm talking.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, thanks, and yeah, that's really helpful, really interesting. Again, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 5 on the agenda is the Children and Young People Rights Scheme. So unfortunately, Katie Spendiff, who was due to give us an update, emailed Alice and myself about quarter of an hour before we came on to say that she's having problems with her computer, a bit like Leslie by the sounds of it. And she's unable to come on and give a verbal report because it keeps dropping off all the time. So she did send something through, but because of the kind of the rules and regulations around the way that the committee works, we can't really take a report that close to it. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. So we've asked Katie just to come back next month and provide that. So that's just for your information, really, because I know there's been a lot of work done in this area of work since the last time Katie was with us in the autumn, in terms of that consultation with children and young people, and it's gone through cabinet and council as well. So there's a lot to update on. So I think it'd be better if Katie does that next month rather than me providing something at short notice, really. So then we're on to item 6, which is the Young Carers Strategy, and Gavin's with us today to provide us with a verbal update of where we are with this item of work. So, Gavin.
Afternoon all. How you all doing?
Afternoon, Gav.
Nice to see you. Okay, so I'm going to just give you a little bit of an update about what's been going on in the world of young carers. It has been a very busy time for the service. So you'll remember we commission the Swansea YMCA to provide our young carers service for us. And it's obviously been a challenging year, but with that has come lots of opportunities as well to provide lots of different support. So I know we've been updating you about some of that throughout the year. So during this winter period, we've also been able to access some of the Winter of Wellbeing money, and that's alongside 3 strands of ICF funding as well, which we've secured for the whole of this year. So that provides the service with 3 additional members of staff and lots of money to run all sorts of different projects aimed at, you know, supporting young carers and their families in lots of different ways. So every week they run a Wednesday session, which is like a kind of an open youth club session, and transport's been a big issue for them. So throughout the winter, they've been able to fund 2 minibuses, so they go around and enable access to that. So that's been running really well. Obviously, at certain points during the winter time, during the pandemic, as with all of the work I'll talk about, it has been disrupted. They have obviously had lots of the young carers themselves and their families impacted by COVID, as have all of the staff in the YMCA been impacted by COVID and the change in risk assessments. But largely those Wednesday sessions have been running and, like I said, have expanded with more young carers accessing them, which has been really positive. They've also been able to fund weekend sessions. So they run a weekend wellbeing session that takes place every Saturday. So that's been all sorts of different issue-based work, lots of different workshops, and that's all led by the young carers kind of steering what they want from that. They've also been running a number of residentials with groups of young carers and sometimes with their families. So they've got another 4 residentials booked in up until the end of March. They've been back in most schools doing more face-to-face. Obviously, working in schools has also been disrupted. But they have been in and they have been setting up those sessions with young carers. So more schools have been taking up the opportunity to run lunchtime sessions for young carers, which has been really positive. The Young Carers Forum has continued to meet on a monthly basis. So they're a group who are overseeing all of that and helping support us with the strategy work as well. We have the Young Carers Action Day this year is on the 16th of March. The theme is tackling isolation, and they are planning to run an event in the YMCA, and they would like to invite representation from the authority to join that event. So I will be attending, certainly from a service point of view, as will a couple of other members of our steering group that the authority have, but they would like to extend an invite to you as a group as well, should any of you wish to join that event. So I will circulate the details of that to Kerry, about which will give you more of the exact details. So that will be run by the forum themselves. So the young people will, I think they are meeting this month, and their focus is going to be on planning that event. Good. Then the ID card has continued to roll out and has been progressing well. They've also been running a Young Carers grant scheme. So with some of the funding they've had, young carers are able to apply for grants of up to £200 to support them with different things. And again, the forum have been involved with the staff in overseeing all the decisions and enabling those grants to go out to young people and families. The website and the podcast have continued to roll out as well, which has been really positive. I've listened to quite a few of the podcasts, which have been really good. So that's lots of really good positive stuff that has happened there, and planned up until the end of the financial year. It has been a challenging period, and they have really focused on maximising the amount of support they could get out to that wider young carers community, which is absolutely the right thing to do. One of our concerns at the moment, as in a lot of different areas at this point in time, is the additional support this year has been very valuable. But there's obviously a huge deal of uncertainty beyond the 31st of March, which is rapidly approaching. So that means that the Summer of Fun and Winter Wellbeing money, as we know at the moment, is not going to be continuing into next year. So that will impact on the kind of activities that are kind of have been run throughout this year. But I think probably more importantly for the provision that's running, there are three separate strands of regional ICF funding, which are coming to an end on the 31st of March. Now, the region have been focused very much on getting funding out, additional funding throughout the winter, but as yet there hasn't been formal communication about what funding will be available for them next year. So obviously that's potentially, 3 of the 4 members of staff in the service there will be at risk off the back of this. So that is obviously having an impact on the service and the team there at the moment. We know from some of the other parts of our roles where we have that funding. We know that there is another strand of funding that will be coming through under a new title. It will be called the Regional Investment Fund, or RIF for short. That will be replacing the ICF funding. But we have not had any further details go out into the third sector yet around what grants they might be able to apply for. So that piece of work is going to be a real priority for them to focus on, and we would want to obviously support that, because that will be crucial. Without that, some of that funding also supports the Young Carers Forum itself. So that will have an impact on our work with them in terms of the strategic development. So, you know, we extended the time scale of developing the strategy so that we could work with the forum and work with young carers themselves so that they co-produce it with us. So we've now had 3 meetings with them, which has been really enjoyable. They have got lots of great ideas. We are in the process of pulling that together. They didn't want to finish it in March. They don't want to finish it in February because they want to focus on their preparation for the action day. But then we've arranged that we are going to finalise that and in March. So once we've completed that, then they would like the opportunity to be able to share that with, I guess, some key strategic managers, and obviously we'll want to share that with yourselves so that you could see what they think will be the key parts of the strategy. But obviously the timelines could be impinged then whether there's funding to continue supporting that forum as well. So there are some complexities ahead. But so far, I guess there's been a lot of positives in the winter as well on focusing on the here and now. And I think I've just about covered everything. Perhaps not in the most logical order, so I hope you could follow me. But obviously happy to answer any questions you've got to try and help bring some clarity to that.
Okay. Thanks, Gavin. It's very comprehensive. Anybody want to ask Gavin anything or raise any issues? Paxton?
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't want Gavin to think that we weren't sitting here listening, but so I thought I'd better ask the questions that we better had. But anyway, on that, what I was going to ask, basically, have you any idea what sort of percentage of the young carers we're actually reaching through these projects across Swansea? Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Is it 90%? Have we got any feel for that?
Do you know, unfortunately, we really don't have a clear idea of the actual percentage, and the reason for that is because we don't really know our overall population of young carers. So one of the biggest issues we have with young carers, and one of the things that we need to deal with in the strategy, is we need to have a system, particularly, you know, ideally it would be through schools would be, you know, the ideal place, whereby schools would have a champion and a lead who would understand around young carers and would capture all the young carers that we know and report that back in on a school by school basis that would allow us then to have some idea of our total young carers population. That is an issue that's really common across the UK for young carers. It is something that the Welsh Government have been looking at as well, and are likely in the next couple of years. Some things have obviously been delayed because of the pandemic, but they have been looking at this, that they will actually put that as a mandatory reporting duty on local authorities, that we should be capturing and reporting our total population of young carers. Even then, it will still be hard to identify all young carers, because a lot of them themselves don't recognise that, and a lot of the work that the service have been doing as well is they run a lot of training courses for professionals, so that they actually understand who young carers might be, and they're going into assemblies as well, because we know that there are a lot of unknown young carers to us. We know how many young carers are signed up to the service. We know how many young carers have got an ID card, and we know that that is a small percentage compared to the total amount, but we don't know what that total amount is. So I would just be entirely guesstimating if I was to give you a percentage.
Yeah, I think it's something that I think we've expressed concern about before as to how we do access, and just another way of possibly doing it, I don't know whether it's being looked at, is whether we could talk to adult social services. They're obviously carrying out assessments. They should be doing care assessments as well. Appreciate it's difficult at this time, don't get me wrong, with the pandemic still around, and I understand that. But I'm just wondering if that's possibly another mechanism for identifying them as well.
Yeah, I think so. We've obviously, as officers, have some strong thoughts on what would be in the strategy, and we've been discussing those with the young carers. And actually, it's been really nice because actually a lot of the thinking is really aligned, and so the thinking would be around, there should be like lead officers for responsibility who are responsible in each school, but that would also be in key adult social services teams, in key child and family service teams, in our early help teams as well, and across places like education welfare service who support our elected home educated pupils. And all of those groups should be reporting how many young carers they are aware of and supporting, so that we actually, we need all of the different sections and departments involved in this to come together with one kind of coherent way of working. There's no other way of tackling it, I don't think, other than everybody playing their part. And that will take time, I guess, especially with the pandemic, for all of those service areas to begin to change and embed that. And that's why I think the strategy would look at that over a 3 to 5 year period. And we'd want to see that, gradual change happening across all of those service areas.
Well, as you say, I wish you well with that, because it's obviously not the easiest of things to do at all. And I'm not trying to teach me grandmother to suck eggs on this one, but it's just a thought. Perhaps that might be useful.
Yeah, no, I think it very much is. And I think that's one of the areas in the past that's been really difficult for young carers. Is it quite often you would understand why adult social services have got a key role to play, but likewise also so do child and family services, and likewise so do schools. And often the work then gets a little bit lost because each focuses on its own kind of perspective on young carers, and we need all of that to come together. And yeah, as you would understand, the pandemic has been difficult for everybody because they've had to focus so much on their core business and just keeping things running, that coming together to share in a bigger piece of work, that's a challenge for us, isn't it, that we need to keep sticking to. Hopefully things will get better, and hopefully people can sign up to a strategy, and we'll make some of that progress over the coming years. But it won't be without its challenges, and I think it would be interesting, what role funding plays in this. But there is hope, when so the way in which we commission the YMCA, we did take all the bits of funding. So we took the funding that adult social services had, that child and family had, and early help had, and rather than doing it separately, we brought all of that together. So we have a much more meaningful kind of young carer service that we're all invested in. So, there's positive signs that everyone's going to work together, but yeah, quite a way to go yet.
Okay, thank you, Gavin.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gavin. Thanks for that, Paxton. It's a really, really important question, I think, and there's some really interesting points in there about essentially, I guess, what's one of the things that this strategy is meant to be doing, I guess, Gavin, is setting out how we intend to try and maximise the number of young carers that we identify and engage with. One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about timescales around funding ending and timescales around the strategy, is the strategy itself and any kind of events around that in terms of how we disseminate that can be really helpful, I think, in securing political commitment, which is really important. I think it's really important to keep this on the agenda. I mean, it is on the agenda because of everything we've been through with COVID, and everybody is looking very closely at vulnerable groups and the impact it's had on them. So, but I don't think we can rest on our laurels. I think when we produce big pieces of work like this, it is an opportunity to really put this on the front of the agenda, and make sure that that we address the fact, or that we make the people in decision-making positions aware that there is a real challenge with funding going forward. Because, as you say, it's great that you've got those 3 extra members of staff, and in services like that, it can make a huge difference, can it? 3 members of staff, but equally, when you take them away, you can have it can be catastrophic. So I think that's so again, as Paxton said, it's a huge piece of work, isn't it? But it sounds good. And I know you've been doing you've had a steering group going where you've been trying to bring together the various different parts within the authority as well, to ensure that there is kind of this joined up approach. And I guess the next step then is making sure that's joined up with the young carers themselves, which sounds like it's happening really well, but to be fair. So it's really heartening to hear some of that, Gavin, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that side of it has been going well, and there's been good representation from officers across the board, despite the challenges. And the young carers have been are a great group, really varied in their ages and experience, but have all been really willing to contribute their thinking and ideas. I think the time scale, so thinking about what's going to be realistic, we want to be ambitious as well as realistic. It is quite tricky. So, even if we think about schools, we have in total, across primary and secondary, not far off 100 schools. And if we think we'd like at least one lead to be identified in every school, to be trained around to understand the issues with young carers, and that they would all be supporting their wider colleagues in the school environment to understand that and to implement the young carers scheme and ID card, and also to begin to process and keep track of all the young carers that are identified in their school. Across 3, 4, 5 schools who are keen and in a good position to do it is easy. But when you're talking about that number, so I guess we'd be looking at maybe year 1, could we get 30% of schools to buy in? By year 2, would we have 60%? Year 3, 70, 80%? I guess those are our discussions at the moment for the strategy. Is we'd want some targets so that we could track, and we talk to the young people, because we were saying, they were saying that they would like us to, if we're saying it's going to happen, how will they know it happens? Which is a great question, and really we should be accountable to them to go back and tell them, well, yeah, we hope 30% of, say, schools would sign up for this outcome, and this year only 20% signed up, or maybe 50% do. So those are the kind of that's the kind of position we're in at the moment, just sort of starting to think through some of those aspects. But I guess nobody knows at the moment, do they, with such exciting challenges happening on a regular basis for us all.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's great to hear that kind of more, kind of detailed, pragmatic thinking about how we would go. I guess it's partly an answer to Paxton's question as well, isn't it? Is we know that it's really difficult to identify children and young carers, but that would be an example of how we could potentially track that, which is a step in the right direction, really. And I guess then it's thinking about kind of some of the practicalities of that in a school by school basis. The key people within that, I guess, they would be people like your designated safeguarding leads, or who would be responsible for those things, and anyway, that's really interesting. Thank you.
The only thing I might add to that, Kerry, for what it's worth, is that virtually all of us are school governors, and I guess every school probably has got a counsellor as a school governor, so it might be that we can push it a little bit as counsellors ourselves through that route as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there has been mention of, potentially add, is it something that might warrant being part of the school governors training programme as well? Obviously, there are a lot of different issues that would be of benefit to governors, and it's quite, a time-consuming role for people who are doing it as well. But yeah, there's definitely an angle there about, what role school governors could play. So, most school governing bodies would have a lead LAC representative who would be holding the school to account around how they work with looked after children. So there's some talk around would that be replicated for young carers? So you have a particular school governor that could really help focus the school on that as well. But again, it's just we're trying to get a sense of how realistic would it be that we would be able to achieve that is kind of what we're toying with. It would be great to say these things, but we want to have some, it's got to have some realism to it as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, anybody for any more in terms of while Gavin's here, in terms of any thoughts, comments, questions on this item? No, that's okay. Nobody's indicated, and that's great. I mean, thanks. Yeah.
Sorry, it's just Leslie's put something in the comments. That's all.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Matthew. Okay. Okay. So she's good, useful update, Gavin. Maybe include some of the points you've raised when you email Kerry, REYMCA details. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and because I was earwigging on your last point, I'm all for everyone gearing up central government around the Shared Prosperity Fund, because the lag on that, just off the back of the European funding dropout, is just, yeah.
I think we just need some clarity. That's all. Regardless of where the money's coming from, really, we just need a bit of clarity so we can plan properly as an authority, isn't it? Really? That's what we're saying.
Yeah, we have been hassling Welsh government around it as well. I'll hassle anyone for it. Anyway, nice to see you all though.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin. Really appreciate it.
Take care now. Bye bye.
Okay, great stuff. We're on to the final item on the agenda, which is the work plan. So we would have had Amy Hawkins would have come today as well to talk to us about where they are with the volunteers, with SCVS, where they are with the volunteer strategy, for Swansea. But as most of you probably know, Amy broke her arm or her wrist and has only recently come back to work and is snowed under, as you can imagine, given her portfolio. So that will be pushed to next month. So we'll have Katie Spendeth coming back next month to give us an update on the Children's Rights Scheme. We'll have Amy Hawkins and the lady whose name I can't remember from SCVS, who's always excellent. They'll be coming back on the volunteer strategy. There won't be anything on employability next month, and there won't be anything on young carers next month, unless there's been a particular, unless there's a small update I can give you based on if anything changes. I think that's right, Alison, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
You can put young carers on as a verbal item if you wanted, but you can leave it till March.
We can have a catch up on that. Any thoughts or questions about the work plan? No. Okay. Well, in that case, then just leaves me to say thanks very much for your attendance. Thanks to the officers that have supported you, particularly Democratic Services again, and see you all next month.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Karen.
much.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Night, everyone.